Hey, what's going on? So in this episode, we're going to face our fears. Let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Greg here again with Believe in Self Podcast. Welcome back to another episode. Thank you for checking in with me and tapping in. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And also, if you want to get notified for new episodes, make sure you hit that bell. For those of you who've been here for a while, hey, how you doing? So in this episode, we're going to be talking about facing your fears. All right. So a lot of people tend to have these fears of different things in their lives. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And also, I'm going to talk to you about how I face my fears head on. All right. So let's hop right into it. So one of the big things that or questions that I get from people is, how did you become a fireman or volunteer firefighter? So after I got burned and I had all my surgeries, I had this thing in my head to where I didn't really want to be around like either anything hot like steam or fire or anything like that. So one day I happened to be like driving down the road and I saw a sign that said, join, we need volunteers now to help the community. And like a little light bulb went up in my head and I said to myself, they're looking for people. I have some free time to actually get into the fire service, and I wanted to see if it was something that I can actually accomplish and do. So I had it in the back of my mind that I know I wanted to see this through. So I took the application home and I went through and I read it, just seeing what the requirements and qualifications were, things like that. And I filled it out in about, I want to say like I picked it up on a Monday. By Friday, I had it dropped off. I didn't hear anything for like 2.5 months. So by the time it came to the third month, I heard something from one of the chiefs at the time. And what I didn't know is that when you join the fire service, particularly the one I joined, the firehouse that I joined, is that they have to vote on bringing new members in. And I had to be brought my name and who I was, where I was from, things like that had to be on the floor. They had to vote on bringing a new member into the fire department. So to make a long story short, I got voted in. I was told to come down and pick up my gear and things like that. Got a packet that had basically the breakdown of what my probationary period would be. So I'll be considered a probie. Brand new shield. They call it the pumpkin shield. I really couldn't do much of anything, but I had to learn, especially from like the senior guys. So that would be considered, learning the fire truck, the different tools, how they're utilized, not even like firefighter stuff just yet. You think like, you just pull a hose out, put a fire out. But there's more to that. So I would have been considered what's called firematic. And firematic is both fire and EMS. So I had to get familiarize myself with the fire truck, all the tools, where the tools were, how to utilize the tools, the different codes that we had to utilize. To make a long story short, if you had like a fire, it'd be like, you got a 13, and if it was a working fire, like, it was coming out the windows or something like that, it'd be like a 1335 or something like that. So there were different codes for different things. And I also had to learn the ambulance. I had to learn how to assist the EMTs on the ambulance as a third or fourth person, know where all the tools were, how to utilize all the tools. So it was a lot that encompassed being a firefighter or a firematic personnel. So it's just not just hopping on the fire truck, taking the fire truck to a call, pulling out a hose, or showing up on the scene with a car accident and just taking somebody out the car. There were like procedures that you had to follow in order to make sure that, one, you were safe, your team was safe, and also if the patient or whomever was safe as well, right? And then we also got trained on hazmat stuff. So if there was like a gasoline truck that flipped over and gas spread around the area, how to deal with something like that. Or if there was a chemical spill, mass casualty incidents, if there was like a pileup on a highway or a train derailed or people who was thrown from the train, and just different things that you had to get trained up on. And it was a lot of training. So over a year during my probation period, I was trained in different types of things, such what I just spoke about. And it was great. It was great training. It was a lot. It was every Sunday for a year, every single Sunday. And whether it was hot, it was cold, it was nice outside, if I had things to do, if I was tired, I had to show up for training. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the gear that you wear being a firefighter, that stuff is like insulated because it's protecting you from heat and fire. And it's heavy. So the average basic firefighter weighs about 250 pounds with all the gear on. And it's a heavy stuff, and it takes a toll on your body. So if you're not in shape, or you're not in a position to where you're physically fit, both physically and mentally, then you could be putting yourself in harm's way, and also the people around you as well, because now they have to take care of you and you might become a victim to whatever scene that you're rolling up on. So after I get through my probationary period, I had to go to out in Suffolk County. They have like a firefighter school, and you had to go through that training. You have to go to get certified, and once you pass that, then you're good. So while at the fire academy, you have something called a flashover simulator. And if anybody is watching this and they are or have been a firefighter, they know that the flashover simulator is very, very intense. So for anyone who's never gone through that, that's where you have to put on all your stuff. So you have to put on your boots, your bunker pants, your jacket. You have a hood that you have to put on to protect your neck, your ears, your hair, and stuff like that. Then you have to put on your mask. Then you have to put on your helmet. And then you have gloves that you have to put on. And these gloves are thick. And when you go into the flashover simulator, it's like a container. For this instance, it may be different around the country, but it was like a container that you went into, and at the far end of the container, let's say it was like a 40-foot long container. At the far end of the container, they started a fire. So you're inside of this container with a fire, and as they put more and more wood, or then they let more oxygen in, you see the fire starts to build up, starts to get hot, and you see like the smoke starts to get thick, and you start to see it bank down. So you go from standing to now you're kind of bending over or kneeling, to the point to where now you're completely on the floor, because you have the layer of smoke. It's also hot inside the smoke. So as the heat comes down, it starts to get hot, to the point to where now inside, when you're kneeling down, you can see inside the smoke. They call it, I think, dancing fingers or something like that, but you can see the fire inside of the smoke. So a flashover is basically where everything in a room reaches the same temperature at the same time, and it gets really hot. It can kill you instantly. It has killed firefighters, and it has killed people as well. So it's a very dangerous situation, but this was a controlled setting and environment. So once that's done, and you're kind of like laying on the ground, and you can kind of feel the heat in all the air pockets in your gear, and in your gear you start to feel uncomfortable, like, oh, this is hot. It could be 300-400 degrees in there. Like I can't remember what it was. It was so long ago, but it was really hot, and it was very uncomfortable. And it was that at that moment, I knew I was facing my fears of being in an intense situation. And I intentionally wanted to put myself in that predicament to make sure I told my mind that I was in control of my body. I was in control of my fears. And at that moment, I said, you know what? I got this. I saw people starting to panic, like, oh, let me out of here and stuff like that. But I knew that I was in control. I was safe. And if I felt like I wasn't in a safe situation, I would kind of backed out. But long story short, I ended up passing fire school, got certified to be a level 1 firefighter. And, I went on for 6 years to be both a firefighter and an emergency medical technician. So let's talk a little bit about how we can kind of overcome our fears. So I believe that fear is taught, and it is some things that we learn as kids. So for example, if you see the stove on, your parents might say, oh, don't touch that, it's hot, you might burn yourself. Or if you jump into water, you maybe not know how to swim, and you had an experience that maybe where you almost drowned or something like that. So fear is something that's taught and or an experience that you may have had in your life. So how do we overcome these fears? The only way to overcome fear is to face it head on. There's no other way. You can't beat around the bush. You can't try to be timid and try to say, oh, well, maybe I might try. No, you have to face it head on, all right, with confidence, and you have to make sure that you crush it. Even if you fail at it the first time, you just have to make sure that you go back at it again until you crush that fear, right? There's no other way to get around it. So what I did was I said, you know what? I'm going to put myself in a predicament to where either I put myself in a predicament to where it's going to be fight or flight. I chose to fight, right? I put myself in a predicament to where I made myself uncomfortable. I didn't like it, but I said, you know what? I'm in control of myself and my body and my thoughts. So you have to put yourself in that position as well in order to overcome those fears, right? So a technique that I use while going through my fear training would be breathing. You may think like, oh, I breathe regular, or I breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, but you'll be surprised how much just breathing in deeply and out through your mouth. and you start to kind of stimulate your body and kind of calm down. And you think to yourself, you start to talk positive to yourself, like, I got this. I know I got this. Fear is just something of the unknown. Fear is just the unknown. Fear is just the unknown. And you start talking to yourself like, I got this. I know how to do this. So some other type of fears that some people may encounter or have are fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being let down. Those are all common fears that most of us have, but those are things that you can't face and you can't beat. You just have to tell yourself that you are stronger and you are bigger than that fear. So let's recap some points that we went over in this video. In order to conquer fear, you have to tell yourself that you can't beat this, that you can't do it. You have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation in order to face those fears. You're always going to have that fear that you can't do it. You're not good enough. I'm a failure. I got let down, or I let someone down. But the only way for you to beat that is to put yourself in that position to face that fear, right? No one else can do it but you. I can't tell you to go face my fears for me because you may not fear the same thing. So I challenge you to do this. If there's something that you're afraid of, whether it's public speaking, being rejected, go and talk to that person or that individual you always wanted to talk to at the coffee shop, at school, at work, suck it up. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no, you fail, you can always try again. So I challenge you, go out there, face your fears. Leave a comment down below and let me know how it worked out for you. All right. So I'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. Share this with 2 people. I believe at today I'm at 40 subscribers and I love it. I love the love. Make sure you go follow me on Instagram. Make sure you go follow me on TikTok as well. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.